Welcome to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast. This is the podcast dedicated to people who want to speak more as a way to build their income and grow their business. Well, welcome everyone to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast. I'm your host, Jane Atkinson. Today's podcast is one that I've been preparing for some time. I have reached out to all of you and asked you for your most embarrassing situations, and boy, did you respond. My inbox was literally filled with stories of things that people were uncomfortable talking about. Now, I've gone through and picked out the ones that I think will be the most helpful to the most people. And I want you to know that you are not alone in feeling the way that you feel. You know, if you've had a flop on stage, well, guess what? We've all had flops. If you've done something that made you look bad to your clients, been there too. You know, you feel like a fraud or a failure. Hello. It's imposter syndrome calling. You know, we've been there. No matter what your story or situation, it boils down to this. It very likely will not be the end of your career. One bad speech does not typically a career ending make. And we're going to share stories that may help inspire you past whatever setback you've had, or perhaps something that may happen to you in the future. So we're kind of shoring up your defenses here. If you're just getting started, there might be a whole host of situations that you can be on the lookout for and perhaps avoid them altogether, which would be amazing. So let's go to number one. And number one, I'd like to call fee raise anxiety. When you are raising your fee, it is a scary time. I know this because I've done it twice in the past year. Now, I was just talking to my client Ryan Estes about this, and I can remember over the course of Ryan's career, every time he wanted to raise his fee, he struggled with the whole concept, the decision, took a long time to make the decision. And then once he did, he had a lot of anxiety about whether or not it was the right thing to do. Second guessing yourself can really take its toll. And funny enough, this happened all the way from way back. Okay, first he was $5,000. Let's go to $7,500. Anxiety. Then from $7,500 to $10,000. Oh no, I'm going to lose, some of these clients. And it was true. You lose some at the bottom, but then you gain better ones at the top. He went from 10 to 12.5 and from 12.5 to 15. Again, there was anxiety. And he said the only time nothing really happened as a result of a fee rise was going from 20 to 25. Ironically, there was not a lot of pushback. So here's what I want to say to you all about fee raises. Several things are going to happen when you raise your fee, and they've happened to me this past year as I've raised my fee twice as well. So you take your number and you add on to it. And first of all, let's talk about when is the right time to make a fee rise. First and foremost, and for Ryan, it's always been about calendar inventory. When you're selling out your months, then it's time to pop the fee up to the next level. And that kind of slows down business a little bit more manageable. And that's what we need when we're constantly trying to manage a lot of incoming inquiries. And that's the situation that he and several other people in my world go through all the time. So it's based on inventory, supply and demand. When you find yourself very, very busy, multiple holds on each day, you will probably be in line for a fee raise. Also, when you find yourself sharing the platform with speakers who are at higher fees than you on a constant basis, that may also be a reason. And certainly when your clients are telling you, wow, I never expected I would have definitely paid more, then you'll know that it's time for a fee raise. It might also be that, you've gone through a rebranding, a new book out. Those are also reasons. But what happens once you do it, I think, and this is me going into my kind of woo-woo land here, I think the universe is going to test you. And for me, uh, it took about a month to get my first client at the new fee. And for those 4 weeks of not having any kind of incoming, I just had to be bold and stand firm and say, no, was exactly what I needed to do. And I'm fine with it. I really have gone through it so many times over the course of my career that I didn't second guess myself. And so now, having flexed that bold muscle and just said, no, every time I make a decision, I'm just going to go boldly forward and not look back. That's the thing that I think needs to happen. The second thing that comes into play is that you are indeed going to lose jobs at those lower fees. Those clients will fall away, but a whole new host of clients will come through at the top. And certainly when it comes to some of my clients, Ryan and Kendra, are playing in the Fortune 100 leagues. Those clients we know have the bigger budgets, and those are going to be the ones that we're keeping our eye on. So when it comes to raising your fee, I think you have to really not second guess yourself. Do a lot of research on the front end and make sure that the timing is right, but then move through it boldly and do not second guess yourself. Okay, so that is tip number one about fee raising. Tip number two is called dropping the ball. And I want to share a story with you that came in from Seema. Seema said that during my divorce, I dropped more than a few balls. She gave me a few examples, but this was the one that I thought was most universal. All I could do was circle back to people, explain what I was dealing with, and everyone understood. Everyone gave me a hall pass. Only I waited far too long to ask to renegotiate terms or scope of whatever I had promised, and I nearly let the shame for how I was or wasn't managing my business make me physically ill. In giving myself permission to be human and in being honest with them, I gave myself the freedom to move forward, and so did they. So, this is the type of situation that is going to crop up for all of us. It may not be divorce. It may be a health situation that you're facing, your spouse is facing. We're caregivers to aging parents, a lot of us. We're going to have kind of death, divorce, taxes, financial issues. There's always, there's something that could crop up for us. And when we go through these types of situations, I think what we need to do is go back to the people that we've made commitments to and really get their buy-in on what we would hope to make the situation more perfect for us. And I think by being honest, it becomes a big relief, and certainly making yourself sick over the stress of not being able to deliver on what's been promised. Seema did exactly the right thing by circling back to her clients and explaining that, what, I am just in a very difficult place right now. And renegotiating things was a great idea. So when life's interruptions come up and bite us, which they do, please give yourself a break. Please understand, really take a look at what's going on around you, and then set yourself up. Set up your schedule so that you can go and deal with what you need to deal with, and then come back when you are ready. The goal is often when you have a big distraction that comes up, meaning, maybe you're moving houses or something like that, look at your calendar, schedule it off, and just try to make a decision to move the ball forward slightly, just a little bit every day, so that you don't lose all of your momentum. So this is number 3. It's going to be called shoring up your following. Now, Hitesh and Vicky from Singapore have written in and said one thing that didn't go right for us was the launch of our membership site. the Better Than Normal Club. That's their brand, Better Than Normal. We launched it at $1 a day, expecting to become internet millionaires with the dream of passive income by membership sites. We realized that we had not built up a tribe yet, and our membership site did not solve any particular problem. Thus, we had to close it down after 5 months. At its peak, it had 45 members. It was a great learning experience, though, and in the process, we created a lot of great content that also made us realize the importance of building a tribe as well as focus. I think shoring up your following, shoring up your people, your tribe, your list is so important. And I would bet you any money that Vicky and Hitesh are not alone in having done this. I would think that there are a lot of people who think, I am going to start an online course. I'm busy out speaking so much that I need to have some passive revenue, or I'm just getting started. I'm going to do my online course first. But what you really have to recognize is that step one is to get a huge following to start with, so that when you say, ta-da, we've got this new shiny object, everybody is on board. You can also be priming the pump and letting people know that it's coming. And you can be quizzing your fan base to find out what exact formats that they would like to see. That was something that we did early on before we started our 12-week course. We asked a lot of questions around what is it that you really need? What are some of your biggest challenges? And then talk to them about how they would like to learn. And so we put it together in a way that was based on what they wanted. Then over the course of the last several years, we have honed it and tweaked it. The first group is almost like, tasting the porridge, too hot, too cold, just right. The first group, it was too short. They needed more time. So then we doubled it. Oh, that was too long. And then, so now we're back to 12 weeks, which is the perfect amount of time. We figured out the perfect number of people and all of the things. So you do have to do a lot of testing, but I would really use your tribe to ask them a lot of questions before you move forward with something like that, and make sure that you've built a big enough tribe. Let's talk about this next tip, which is called the bad speech. Oh boy, this is from Jared Bro, who is out of New Orleans. He says, there's the keynote in Bismarck where I died 1,000 cuts of death. It was one of my first times on a huge stage. Everything changes on a huge stage. He's going to talk about that here. The client had hired me for training in the past and wanted me as a main stage keynoter. With 400 people in the room, I wasn't prepared for the bright spotlights that prevented me from seeing smiling faces and receiving the laughs and feedback that I was used to getting in a smaller setting. This is a really important thing for people to understand when you go from the kind of the training hotel room up to the big stage. Some things change and you have to be prepared for that. Then there was the content. My speech was discussed and planned, but the client kept asking me to add this and that. I wasn't mature enough to say no. The end result was that a laundry list of content that lacked the flow a good keynote should have. The flow, the stories, and the humor were not practiced enough times to gel. Oh, and don't forget the anger. They wanted me to speak about the lessons of Hurricane Katrina. So Jared, from being from New Orleans, he knew this topic very well. He says, unfortunately, I had not personally healed from my anger about the storm, and it showed on stage. He said, in the years that followed, I hired Lou Heckler to help me cover the necessary content without the anger. And that's also about the time that I first hired you. So I think Jared's situation of not kind of pushing back when a client really wants to dictate everything that you're talking about. One of the things that you can say to your client when they start to try to micromanage a speech is, let's circle back to why you hired me in the first place. What was it about me that made you feel confident that I could do the job for you? And then let them sell you back on why you don't want to let them micromanage the speech. And, that does definitely take a little little bit of backbone. And I'm sure since then, that was a long time ago, I'm sure since then, Jared has learned that. But also in going from uh, the room where basically all of the lights are up to being on a stage with the spotlights on you, you are very lucky if you can even see the first row or anybody. It's a whole different mix. And you need to kind of get your energy feed from other places. You're listening for just chuckles and things like that. And you really have to kind of try to pretend that you're honing in on people that you really can't see. And it's a whole different ball of wax. And I'm glad that Jared shared that, because I think that's a really good lesson for a lot of people. With regards to the Hurricane Katrina piece, I think we've heard it say something before about, giving speeches isn't meant to be therapy. And I think him feeling, a certain energy about it is one thing, feeling really passionate about something or having something that really moves you show through on your presentation is perfectly fine. But I think in his situation, he just had to deal with some of those things. And fortunately, he was able to reach out to Lou Heckler and work through that, which was great. No doubt Lou has done some therapy as well as coaching in the past, as have I. Okay, let us move on to our next tip, which is called the wrong joke. And this is kind of on the same vein where a speech just doesn't go quite, exactly how you planned it. So this is from Scott Greenberg. He said, there's one mistake I made. I was speaking on, he's saying my side of the border, so he's speaking in Canada, and based on the sensibility of the crowd, I allowed myself to make a few jokes about American politics and one person in particular. We can all imagine who that is. I got a huge laugh, so I made a few more jokes. This is so common. Again, great response, until afterwards when an audience member approached me. She said that in spite of Canada's overwhelming opinion about this American politician, she supported him and felt uncomfortable by my jokes. I felt terrible. The laughs I got were low-hanging fruit and not worth the discomfort I imposed on this audience member. Avoiding politics on stage for him now is rule number one. He said, I totally regret breaking that rule. On a side note, this is still him talking, I shared with the client about what happened and I apologized. And this is such a good thing to do, because I think that you always want to face any kind of problems or things that you might deem negative. You want to face them head on, which is exactly what Scott did. Way to go. She had me scheduled to speak at another conference the following week, so I promised I wouldn't make those jokes. She said she didn't care what one audience member thought. She loved the jokes and the response I got and said I should definitely repeat them. Ultimately, I made one tame joke to please the client and then quickly moved on, which I think is very well done. Now, this is kind of going to be something that I think everybody has to decide for themselves, whether or not it's okay to offend a client, offend an audience member, one person in the audience. Rosita Perez, I think, said it beautifully a long time ago. Her idea was that if I offend one person, that's one person too many. I'm pretty sure that was Rosita who said that. And I think that it's up to you. This kind of falls also under the idea of swearing on stage. I have clients who will drop, maybe one F-bomb in a speech. In my mind, one is fine. More than that is not okay. But then there's Gary Vaynerchuk's out there who dropping them all over the place. And when the client hires Gary, they know what they're getting. So I would just say, don't be gratuitous with it. And I've always felt that your goal is really to try to be as edgy as you can without offending anyone. And if you do offend one person, that's probably one too many. So that's my rule of thumb on it. But I know there are people out there who are doing great, great business, and they push the envelope just a little bit on that. And I think that is that is a choice and that you're making it very consciously. Let us move on to the next piece, which is called professional jealousy. This one is from, I'm going to keep the name anonymous on these next couple because I don't think it serves any purpose. But I think that a lot of people can really, really identify with this. This person says, I struggle with jealousy and envy. I have a visceral reaction when I see someone's feed that's higher than mine, or when they post videos at an event and my calendar is looking pretty spotty. What makes me feel the most jealous is speakers who come to my hometown to speak, and no matter who the client is, I think, why didn't I get that gig? Can anybody relate to that? I think that professional jealousy is very, very common. We call it the green monster. And I think that what can help shore it up is putting your head down and just putting on the blinders for what everybody else is doing. If you get kind of angry or upset every time you look through all of your speaker buddies' Facebook pages, then don't look through your speaker buddies' Facebook pages all the time. And I think perhaps really focusing on what you're doing in your own business. I let professional jealousy kind of drive me. If there's something that my competitors are doing that I think is cool, I'll be like, okay, well, maybe I need to consider that. But at the same time, I'm just head down doing my business without any thought of anybody else whatsoever. I don't follow anybody else's work for that exact reason, is I don't want to be influenced or ever, if I'm ever talking about the same topic that somebody else is talking about, I want that to be purely by chance. And so I think that that's just a good rule of thumb, is just put your head down and work hard. The other thing is, actually, that leads us to the next topic, which is really along exactly the same vein, which is called the comparison game. Now, I have a friend who, in my eyes, has been living a terrific life for the past couple of decades that I've known her. She's got a part-time speaking business, doesn't really consider herself a success because it's never been a big money earner for her. Now, if I were to guess, she might be looking at some of the other kind of friends in our circle and comparing herself, thinking that she's a failure. And what I want to say to that is that I think it's up to all of us to decide how we want our lives and our businesses to be measured. What if my friend had gone and given one speech, just one speech that changed the trajectory of somebody's life? Or, how would you measure that? Or what if her way of being in the world had a really positive influence on all the people around her? How would you measure that? I think we also want to consider input versus output. How much effort and time are the people around her putting into their businesses? And maybe they have a whole team of people surrounding them where it's just her kind of doing her thing and not really, aggressively focused hardcore on this business full time. I think you really have to look at what goes into the business, kind of what comes out at the other end. I have another client who was telling me that her sales were up 65% this year from the year prior. And when she sat down and really thought about it, she realized her productivity was also up 65%. Last year she had something big going on in her life and she was not phoning it in, but she wasn't putting her whole heart into it. And this whole entire year she's been using the Wealthy Speaker Daily Success Journal and really intentionally doing the right things in her business every single day. This is just how focus and momentum look. And I think that we have to really not compare. There's a saying about don't compare your beginnings to someone else's middle. But also you have to look at all of the things they have going on in their business and recognize that if you're just a one person show just starting out, that there's just no comparison. Just take it right off the table and stop playing the comparison game altogether. So whether it be the comparison game or professional jealousy, I really want you to be thinking about how you can just put on the blinders, put your head down, and kind of make the decision how much input you're going to give your business based on how much output you really, really want. I have a lot of clients right now who are in massive, massive momentum building mode. That's because our hashtag this year is focused hustle. You know, Ryan has a saying, be humble, stay hungry, always hustle. No, maybe it's stay humble, be hungry, always hustle. I'm not sure if I'm getting the words exact right, but focused hustle is what we're really after, really dedicating yourself to taking the right actions every single day. And because we have so many people who are out there doing exactly that, they are seeing results. They are making connections with people who, if haven't already booked, are going to be booking soon. And we have people who had never even booked a speech professionally in our 12-week course, finally got their first speaking engagement. I mean, focused hustle really works. So let's just review. We've talked about raising the fee and some tips of things that you might want to be thinking about every time you do raise up your fee. You're going to lose a set of clients at the bottom, but you're probably going to gain a better set at the top. And there is something to be said for perception. If your fee is too low, you may be not perceived the way you want to be in terms of your level of talent. So fee raise anxiety, dropping the ball because of some distraction in your life. What are you going to do when that happens? You know, really set out a plan when you find yourself in the thick of something going on, and see if you can't maybe just move the ball forward just a little bit every day despite what's going on in your world. Shoring up your following before you launch a course or a club or a membership platform or something like that. I think that was a terrific lesson that Hitesh and Vicky learned, and I think that we can all learn from that to really make sure that we have the right pieces of the puzzle in place before we move forward. The bad speech. Moving past the bad speech, you know, we didn't really talk about what to do after this happens, but after the bad speech, I think it's really important that you get back on the horse quickly. The sooner you can get back out there and kind of get your mojo back. I think what can happen from a bad speech is you can go home and start licking your wounds, and you may lick them for months, and it may send you down a little bit of a spiral. My goal for you is that you just get back out there and do good work so that you can get your mojo back really quickly. So get back on that horse. The wrong joke. I love that Scott shared this, and I like the opportunity to be able to talk about, you know, if you're offending one audience member, that may be one too many. And that's food for thought. You know, you're going to have to decide how you proceed forward if you have something that's edgy in your presentation. Professional jealousy and the comparison game were our last two. And I love the idea of just putting your head down and moving forward boldly and putting on the blinders like a horse and just forgetting about what everybody else is doing and just do your own thing. There are some people out there that I suspect are just really struggling with being entrepreneurs. You know, going out and hunting down the business maybe is just not your thing. You know, I get that. I think you have two choices. Number one, you can spend the time, energy, and money learning how to be a business owner. Or number two, you can go out and find a job that involves speaking, and that will maybe allow you to kill two birds. There are always jobs with the seminar companies that are, going to take you on the road, the Fred Pryors of the world, that will allow you to go out and speak across the country. What I think most people find is that gives them more confidence once they come out of a job like that. So, it could be that you can find a local training gig or something that just really feeds this need to speak that you may have, but doesn't have you being in this entrepreneurial position that makes you so uncomfortable. You could also partner up with people that need speakers. I have a client, Greg Schenkel, who is out there delivering $1 million contracts, and he hires other trainers to sometimes help with some of the training. And I think that that can be a nice fit for people who maybe want to do it part-time. I don't know that he would have enough to fill anybody's calendar full-time, but there might be some good number of engagements there. So there are kind of some workarounds, and I want you to all try to figure out a way of doing business that's perfect for you. Now, our podcast today is being sponsored by our new book and journal combo, which is featuring the Wealthy Speaker Daily Success Planner and Journal, plus the Wealthy Speaker 2.0, plus a couple of great bonuses, a 3-part video series on daily success habits, and our Wealthy Speaker meditation, and it's all for the lowest price we've ever offered. So take a look at the details. If you hop on over to speakerlauncher.com/journal, you will see all of the details there. Well, I want to say thank you all for taking the time to listen. And if this podcast has been helpful to you, please let us know. Leave a comment on the comments page or where you are listening. Leave us a rating. We really appreciate knowing that you're listening and knowing that it's had some impact on you. So with that, we'll say, see you soon, Wealthy Speakers. Bye for now, everyone. Thanks for listening to the Wealthy Speaker Show. Please visit speakerlauncher.com for your free Wealthy Speaker audit, and visit speakerlauncher.com/podcast for show notes and many more resources to help you catapult your speaking business. See you soon, Wealthy Speakers.